The galaxy had learned one rule over 40,000 years. When the stellar Dominion spoke, civilizations listened. When the Dominion demanded obedience, worlds complied. And when someone refused, that species disappeared. So when humanity sent back a message that said no, the stars themselves seemed to pause, as if waiting to see whether a tiny, reckless species had just signed its own death sentence, or rewritten the laws of survival forever. The stellar Dominion was not an empire built by chance. It was an ancient alliance of elder races who believed dominance was proof of destiny. They had watched younger civilizations rise, struggle, and fall. They had decided long ago that order could only exist if the strong ruled the weak. Their capital floated in the shadow of a collapsing blue giant star. The station, called the Eternal Spire, was older than most recorded histories. Entire wars had been planned within its walls. Entire species erased with a single vote. The ruling council gathered in silence. 12 beings, each representing a different race, each powerful beyond imagination. But only 3 truly mattered. The Aurelian collective spoke first. Their leader existed as a shifting field of golden light, a being of pure logic who had long ago abandoned physical form. Emotion, to the Aurelians, was a flaw evolution eventually corrected. Next were the Dravari clans. Towering, horned warriors whose bodies were reinforced with living metal. They lived for conquest and measured honor in victories. Their fleets had burned more worlds than most species even knew existed. And finally, the Vathal Enclave. Thin, pale, and silent, the Vathal possessed minds that could bend thoughts, fracture memories, and crush sanity without firing a single weapon. They did not shout. They did not threaten. They simply decided. The council had convened for a routine matter. A new species. Detected at the outer edge of Dominion space. The Vathal observer projected the image into the center of the chamber. A small blue planet. Water. Clouds. Green continents. Primitive, by their standards. The species calls itself human, the observer said calmly. Origin world designation, Earth. The Dravari warlord leaned forward, claws scraping against the obsidian floor. They reached interstellar travel already. Yes, the Vathal replied. Recently. Crude engines. Inefficient drives. But functional. The Aurelian light pulsed faintly. Assessment. Physically weak, the observer continued. No natural weapons. Limited lifespans. No psionic presence. Their minds are noisy, but shallow. A low, amused sound echoed from the Dravari. Then this is barely worth discussion. The Aurelian voice remained calm. Protocol exists for a reason. They must be offered the choice. Every species received the choice. Submit, or be erased. A Dominion envoy was dispatched 2 months later. It arrived in the Sol system without warning. The ship was larger than anything humanity had ever built. Its hull shimmered with impossible materials, bending sensor readings and warping light itself. Weapons lined its surface, each capable of destroying cities or planets. Human telescopes tracked it in stunned silence. Then humanity did something unexpected. They sent a greeting. 3 human vessels approached the massive alien ship slowly, weapons powered down, broadcasting open communication channels. The message was polite, formal, almost calm. The Dominion envoy found this curious. The meeting was arranged near Earth's moon. Inside a human-built station, clean but modest, representatives waited. Military leaders, scientists, diplomats, all human. The Dominion envoy entered without hesitation, flanked by armored guards. "I am Speaker Talrian," the envoy announced. "Voice of the Stellar Dominion." A human woman stepped forward. She wore a dark uniform. Her posture was straight. Her expression controlled. "I am Director Elena Ward," she said. "On behalf of humanity, welcome." Talrian studied her carefully. She was not afraid. That alone was unusual. The envoy projected the Dominion decree into the air. The words were ancient, polished, spoken 1,000,000 times before. The Dominion ruled this region of space. Humanity had entered it without permission. To continue existing, they must accept Dominion authority. Resources would be collected. Military forces limited. Independence surrendered. In return, humanity would be protected, guided, controlled. Director Ward read every line. She did not interrupt. When she finished, she looked up. "You're offering us survival," she said slowly, "at the cost of our freedom." Taurian tilted his head. Freedom is a primitive concept. Survival is the only reality. Ward nodded. "May we discuss this internally?" The envoy hesitated, then agreed. "One cycle. Then we return for your answer." The Dominion ship departed. Across Earth, governments activated emergency protocols. News networks went silent. Military production shifted overnight. Scientists were pulled from peaceful research and given impossible deadlines. Humanity did not panic. Humanity prepared. 1 month later, a single human probe crossed into Dominion space, carrying a message. The Council gathered again. The message was played. It was short. Humanity acknowledged the Dominion's power, their history, their victories. Then came the refusal. Humanity would not submit. They would not trade freedom for safety. They would not kneel simply because others arrived first. They ended with a sentence that unsettled the chamber. "We are not fearless. We are familiar with extinction. And we refuse to meet it on our knees." Silence filled the eternal spire. Then the Dravari laughed. "A species with no claws dares defy us." The Aurelian light pulsed with amusement. Fascinating. Arrogant. Predictable. The Vathal observer said nothing. The decision was unanimous. A cleansing fleet would be dispatched. Not to negotiate. Not to intimidate. To erase. Back in the Sol system, Director Ward stood inside a command center buried deep within an asteroid. Displays showed projected enemy fleet sizes. Numbers that should have inspired despair. She looked around at the people beside her. Engineers. Pilots. Scientists. Soldiers. Ordinary humans. "Status?" she asked. A young officer swallowed. "We're behind schedule. But we'll be ready." Ward nodded. "We don't need to be stronger," she said quietly. "We need to be smarter." Outside, hidden among rocks and shadows, human ships waited. Silent. Cold. Patient. The Stellar Dominion believed humanity had signed its own death warrant. They did not yet understand one simple truth. Humanity had survived by refusing to accept impossible odds. And extinction was just another impossible challenge. The Stellar Dominion's cleansing fleet did not enter the Sol system like an army. It entered like a natural disaster. Space folded open at the edge of the system, and warships poured out in perfect lines, dark, vast, and quiet, as if the vacuum itself respected their presence. Their hulls carried the marks of ancient victories, engraved sigils, layered armor, glowing conduits that looked like veins filled with starfire. At the center sailed the flagship. It was called Judgment of Dawn. It was so large that it felt wrong, like a moving city that had decided to become a weapon. Its forward cannons could crack moons. Its shields could drink the heat of suns. Around it moved 200 escort vessels, each one more advanced than anything humanity had seen. On the flagship's command deck, Warlord Kayla Dravari watched the Sol system form on his tactical display. He expected fear. He expected chaos. He expected desperate transmissions, begging for terms. Instead, the system looked normal. Planets in their orbits. Ships moving in small numbers. No defensive wall. No grand fleet waiting. Kayla's mouth pulled into something close to contempt. "So," he said, voice low and pleased, "they chose to hide." His officers made harsh, amused sounds. "Primitive behavior," one of them replied. "They will scatter like insects when the first cities burn." Kayla's eyes narrowed as the fleet advanced inward. "Do not destroy them too quickly. I want them to understand why they should have bowed. The Dravari believed in lessons. The Dominion was not just power, it was theater. Every conquest was performed so that the galaxy remembered. Every refusal was punished so completely that nobody dared copy it. Kayla had done this before. Many times. The fleet moved past the outer worlds without slowing. Sensors scanned, but only in the lazy way predators scan a field that cannot fight back. Their systems focused on large signatures, energy spikes, anything worth paying attention to. The asteroid belt was marked as irrelevant. Rocks. Dust. Kayla barely looked at it. Back in the belt, buried inside a hollowed asteroid, Director Elena Ward watched the same fleet through silent sensors. She could see them clearly. Their formation was perfect. Their confidence was perfect. And that was the problem. Or rather, that was the opening. Around her, the command center hummed with quiet tension. Screens filled with maps and calculations. Timers counted down in synchronized columns. People spoke in short, clipped phrases, the way humans did when fear had been turned into focus. Ward leaned toward her tactical officer. Are they scanning? Bare minimum, he whispered. They're running wide sweeps, but they're not doing deep analysis. Ward's eyes stayed on the enemy formation. Because they don't think they need to. A communications specialist looked up. All strike groups are in place. Ward nodded once. She did not smile. Humans were not winning this war by being brave. Humans were winning by being honest about one thing. They were outmatched. And because they accepted that truth, they built their entire plan around it. 6 months earlier, when the Dominion envoy had left, humanity had made a choice in silence. If the galaxy ran on intimidation, then humans would attack that system directly. Not their ships. Not their weapons. Their certainty. Humanity had no time to match Dominion technology. So humanity built a war that Dominion technology was not designed to fight. They took mining vessels and turned them into launch platforms. They took cargo ships and filled them with guided rocks the size of buildings. They took deep space research stations and converted them into sensor traps. And most importantly, they hid everything. They learned quickly that Dominion sensors were powerful, but arrogant. Dominion scanning systems looked for what real enemies usually built: bright shields, large reactors, massive fleets. Humans used small reactors. Cold storage. Dark mode drift. Their ships waited silent behind asteroids with engines off, wrapped in reflective netting and coated in dust harvested from the belt itself. To Dominion eyes, they were just more rock. Ward stared at the tactical map. If the Dominion fleet reached Earth, the war ended. Not because humans would stop fighting. Because there would be nothing left to protect. Hold, Ward murmured. The fleet passed deeper into the belt. Still in formation. Still confident. Still blind in the way only unstoppable power could be blind. Then Ward raised her hand. Not high. Just enough for everyone to see. Her voice went out on encrypted channels to every hidden ship, every platform, every waiting human heart in the darkness. Now. The first shots were not aimed at Dominion ships. They were aimed at space itself. Thousands of kinetic projectiles, dense metal slugs, guided rocks, missile clusters, blasted into carefully calculated points along the fleet's path. They detonated into expanding clouds of debris. Invisible walls. Instant minefields. The Dominion's perfect formation suddenly had nowhere safe to go. Ships veered. Shields flared. Collision alarms screamed. And for the first time in 40,000 years, the Dominion fleet did something it had not planned to do. It reacted. Kayla Dravari slammed a claw onto his command console. What is this? His officers shouted reports. Mass debris fields, Warlord. Multiple impact events, no direct hits yet. They are forcing us to scatter. Kayla's eyes widened as his beautiful formation broke apart, captains trying to avoid collisions and chain impacts. It wasn't lethal yet. But it was humiliating. A sudden message appeared from the sensor deck. New signatures. Hundreds, no, over 1,000 small vessels emerging from behind asteroids. Kayla stared. Impossible. The Dominion's intelligence said humans had 40 warships. Not 1,000. Not even close. And yet, there they were. Human craft poured out of hiding like a storm of steel insects. Some were proper warships newly built in rushed shipyards. Others were ugly conversions, mining rigs with cannon mounts, cargo haulers with missile pods, old colony transports with railguns bolted to their sides. They weren't elegant. They weren't advanced. But they were many. And they moved like they had rehearsed this moment 1,000 times. Because they had. Kayla's voice cracked through the deck. Bring weapons online. Target their ships. His officers hesitated. Warlord, their ships are too small. Our main cannons are optimized for large targets. We can hit them, but... Then use the point defense. Point defense systems flared, firing streams of energy and kinetic bursts. Hundreds of human ships were torn apart instantly, becoming bright blossoms of fire and debris. And still more came. Humans did not retreat. Humans did not slow. Because the human ships were not the primary weapon. The weapon was the moment. Ward watched losses appear on her display as red marks. She felt each one like a punch. But she did not stop the plan. Phase 2, she said. Her voice remained steady, but everyone around her could hear the pressure in it, the weight of every human life being spent to buy seconds. Dozens of disguised cargo ships drifted into view. Slow, clumsy, obviously vulnerable. Kayla saw them and laughed harshly. They're sending civilian vessels? Pathetic. Destroy them. Dominion cannons fired. The first cargo ship evaporated. The second shattered. The third erupted like a sun. And the Dominion fleet paid for it immediately. Because those ships were not cargo ships. They were kinetic traps. Each one was packed with mass, tungsten, mined ore, compressed scrap, dense matter held under magnetic clamps. When Dominion fire hit, the clamps released automatically. A tidal wave of superdense material blasted outward at relativistic speeds. The debris slammed into Dominion shields like fists made of mountains. One escort vessel's shield failed. Not fully, not at once, but enough. A human strike craft, small, fast, almost invisible, shot through the gap and slammed into the ship's engine section. It did not explode like an energy weapon. It ripped. Metal tore open. Reactor coolant vented. The Dominion ship went dark. Kayla's mouth went still. That ship had survived wars that lasted centuries. And it had just been killed by something crude. Something angry. Something designed by a species that had spent its entire history improvising survival. Reports flooded in. Escort Vessel 9 disabled. Shield disruptions across the outer line. Multiple ships suffering kinetic damage. Kayla roared. This is not possible. They should not have weapons like this. And deep inside his chest, beneath rage, something colder began to spread. Not fear. Not yet. But disbelief. The Dominion had built doctrine around one truth. Overwhelming power ended wars quickly. But humans were not trying to win quickly. Humans were trying to break the Dominion's confidence, piece by piece, until that overwhelming power became clumsy. Ward leaned closer to her display. The fleet was scattering. It was disorganized. And that was when she delivered the real strike. Activate the ghost net, she whispered. Across the belt, hidden transmitter nodes flickered to life. Small, cold, quiet systems humans had planted weeks earlier. They blasted false signals into Dominion sensors. Phantom fleets. Fake ships. Imagined missiles. Dozens of threats appeared on Dominion displays, everywhere at once. Kayla's officers panicked. Warlord. We're being surrounded. No, it's a trick, Kayla snapped, but even he wasn't sure. The sensor deck shouted again. Multiple targets matching Dominion ship profiles, impossible. But they are there. Kayla's head whipped toward the main display. And his blood turned to ice. Because among the false signals, one signature looked real. Too real. A massive energy reading. A ship-sized shadow. It was not human. At least, it shouldn't have been. What is that? Kayla demanded. The sensor officer's voice shook. Unknown vessel. No active emissions. No drive plume. It's just there. The ship appeared on the edge of Dominion formation like a void cut into space. Black. Silent. And watching. Ward stared at her own display. Her technicians whispered. "That's not us," one said. Ward's face tightened. "No," she answered softly. "That's not us." For the first time since the war began, something unexpected happened. The Dominion, ancient, unstoppable, arrogant, paused. Not because humanity had scared them, but because something else had entered the battlefield. Something that did not follow any rules. Ward's hand lowered slowly. Her voice was quiet. "Everyone, hold fire." Because suddenly, the war was no longer just humanity versus the Dominion. And whatever that silent ship was, it had chosen to appear at the exact moment the Dominion's formation broke. As if it had been waiting for weakness. As if it had been watching the galaxy for a long time. And now, it was ready to move. For several heartbeats, no one fired. Human. Dominion. Everyone froze. The unknown vessel hung in space like a tear in reality itself. It did not glow. It did not emit heat. It did not move the way ships moved. Sensors could see it, but could not understand it. Every scan returned contradictions. Mass without gravity, structure without composition, energy without source. On the Dominion flagship, silence replaced shouting. Warlord Kayla stared at the display. "That ship," he said slowly, "is not human." The sensor officer swallowed. No known Dominion signature matches it either. That answer was worse. The Dominion knew the galaxy. They had catalogued thousands of species, destroyed hundreds more. Unknown technology was rare. Unknown presence was almost unheard of. The Vathal observer, connected remotely to the fleet, spoke for the first time since the battle began. "That vessel is old." Kayla turned sharply. "Older than us." A pause. "Yes." The word settled over the bridge like frost. Old meant dangerous. Old meant survived. Old meant something that had lived through eras where the Dominion had barely existed. On the human side, confusion spread just as fast. Director Elena Ward felt it immediately. "That's not one of ours," she said again, louder this time. "No human registry matches it," a technician confirmed. "No construction records. No engine type we recognize." Ward's jaw tightened. Then something worse happened. The unknown ship spoke. Not with sound. Not with language. Every system, human and Dominion alike, received the same signal at the same instant. It bypassed encryption. It ignored firewalls. It simply appeared. A single sentence. "You should not have come here." The voice was calm. Not threatening. Not angry. Just factual. Kayla felt his scales prickle. "Identify yourself," he demanded, forcing authority into his tone. The reply came instantly. "We are the Watchers." That name meant nothing to humans. But to the Dominion. The bridge erupted. Officers shouted. Consoles flashed warning colors. The Vathal observer went still, their eyes wide with something dangerously close to fear. "That is impossible," the observer whispered. The Watchers vanished before the Dominion rose. Kayla's confidence cracked. "What are they?" The Vathal's voice trembled. They were not conquerors. They were not rulers. They were curators. Observers of civilizations. Enforcers of balance. Ward leaned toward her console. "Can they be hostile?" she asked quietly. No one answered. The unknown ship did not move. It did not charge weapons. It simply existed, forcing every mind in the battle to acknowledge it. Then the message continued. "You were warned." The Dominion fleet's systems screamed. Not from attack. From interference. Navigation failed. Targeting systems lost lock. Shields flickered, not collapsing, but misaligning, layers drifting out of sync as if reality itself had been nudged sideways. Kayla slammed his fist down. Fire on that vessel. Multiple Dominion ships discharged their main weapons. Beams of star-hot energy tore across space. They hit nothing. The Watcher ship did not dodge. The attack simply passed through it, as if it were not entirely there. The beams emerged on the other side and continued into empty space. A hush fell over every channel. Human pilots stared in disbelief. That should have destroyed a planet, someone whispered. Ward's pulse hammered. This was not part of the plan. But this was an opportunity. The Watchers spoke again. To the Stellar Dominion, the voice said. Your era of unchecked domination ends here. Kayla roared. You have no authority. We do not rule, the Watchers replied. We remember. And suddenly, the unknown ship changed. Space around it folded inward, collapsing into a sphere of impossible darkness. The darkness expanded outward in a controlled wave, not fast, not violent, but absolute. Where it passed, Dominion systems died. Not destroyed. Disabled. Power drained. Weapons went silent. Drives shut down. One by one, Dominion ships went dark. Kayla watched his fleet lose cohesion, not from damage, but from helplessness. Restore systems, he shouted. Nothing responded. The Watchers were not attacking the ships. They were attacking the assumptions behind them. That technology always escalated. That power always accumulated. That older meant weaker. Human systems flickered, but stayed online. Ward noticed immediately. They're ignoring us, she said. No, a scientist corrected, voice shaking. They're exempting us. The Watchers spoke again. Humanity adapts, the voice said. Humanity questions. Humanity does not preserve power for its own sake. Ward swallowed. They were being judged. The Dominion had always believed themselves the final test. They were wrong. Kayla's voice lowered. You protect them. No, the Watchers replied. We observe outcomes. You failed yours. With a subtle shift, the darkness retracted. Dominion ships drifted helplessly, their power slowly returning, but unevenly. Some systems rebooted incorrectly. Others remained dead. The Watchers were not erasing them. They were humbling them. Ward saw her chance. All human units, she said calmly, resume operations. Human ships surged forward again, not charging blindly, but targeting carefully. Disabled escorts. Exposed reactors. Navigation cores. This time, the Dominion could not respond effectively. Their confidence was broken. Their formations shattered. Their certainty destroyed. Kayla watched another cruiser die, torn apart by coordinated human fire. Not superior fire. Smarter fire. This is not possible, he whispered. And that was when he finally understood. Humanity was not winning because of the Watchers. Humanity was winning because they had already accepted loss as a possibility, and planned anyway. The Watchers turned their attention to humanity. You stood, the voice said. Few do. Ward felt every eye in the command center turn to her. She took a breath. We didn't ask for protection, she said aloud, knowing they could hear her. You did not receive it, the Watchers replied. You received time. The unknown vessel began to fade, its outline dissolving into the fabric of space. Our observation ends, the voice said. What follows will be remembered. And then the Watchers were gone. No explosion. No light. Just absence. The battlefield remained. The Dominion fleet, crippled, disoriented, no longer invincible. Human ships, damaged, burning, but still fighting. Ward straightened. All units, she said firmly, the Watchers are gone. This war is ours again. She looked at the tactical display. At the broken enemy. At the cost already paid. Finish it. Because now, the galaxy was watching. And humanity was no longer the unknown variable. They were the proof that domination was not destiny. The Stellar Dominion had never known retreat. They had known withdrawal. They had known repositioning. They had known calculated pauses meant to prolong victory. But retreat, true retreat, was something written into their history only as something others did. Now, in the cold void of the Sol system, Dominion warships drifted out of formation, engines stuttering, shields misaligned, command chains fractured. Their systems were alive again, but wounded. Their certainty was gone. Warlord Kayla stood on the bridge of the Judgment of Dawn, staring at a tactical display he no longer recognized. Human ships were everywhere. They were not larger. They were not stronger. But they moved with purpose. They did not charge randomly. They swarmed disabled ships, targeted power nodes, severed communication lines, and withdrew before counterfire could fully align. It was not rage driving them. It was discipline. "This is unacceptable," Kayla growled. "Reassert command. Focus fire on their coordination vessels." A Dravari officer hesitated. "Warlord, we can't identify which ships are command nodes. They rotate roles. Their network keeps shifting." Kayla's claws tightened. That was wrong. Civilizations had hierarchies. Leaders. Centers. Remove the head and the body collapsed. Humanity had no single head. Their command structure was fluid, adaptive, resilient. Lose one node, another took over. Lose 5, 10 more filled the gap. They had built their war not to survive victory, but to survive loss. On Earth, Director Elena Ward watched the battle unfold across layered screens. Human casualties were high. She did not deny it. She felt every report, every signal that went silent, every ship that vanished in a bloom of light. But the Dominion's losses were worse. And worse still. They were confused. "They're hesitating," a tactical analyst reported. "Dominion ships are holding fire longer than expected." Ward nodded. "They've never fought something they didn't understand." Understanding was humanity's greatest weapon. The Dominion believed power solved problems. Humans believed problems were solved by asking better questions. The Judgment of Dawn fired again, its massive cannons ripping through space. A human cruiser vanished instantly, erased by energy that could melt continents. Kayla felt a surge of grim satisfaction. "They still die," he snarled. But then something hit his ship. Not from the front. From below. A human vessel, small, angular, barely armored, had drifted beneath the flagship sensor plane. Its engines flared at the last second as it launched a cluster of devices directly into the flagship's lower hull. They weren't missiles. They were anchors. Dense, spinning masses that latched onto the hull using electromagnetic claws and micro-explosions. Once attached, they activated. Gravity bloomed. Localized. Artificial. The Judgment of Dawn lurched. Alarms screamed. "Structural stress detected," an officer shouted. Localized gravity wells forming along the hull. Kayla's eyes widened. They weren't trying to break his ship. They were trying to weigh it down. The flagship's own mass worked against it, stressing internal supports never designed for uneven gravity. Systems flickered as artificial weight dragged the ship's orientation off axis. Kayla roared. "Detach them!" Point defense guns fired, shredding several anchors, but not all. Human ships exploited the moment. Railgun slugs punched into exposed sections. Missiles slipped through shield gaps. The Judgment of Dawn bled fire. Kayla slammed his fist against the command rail. "Humans," he shouted into open channels. "You cannot win. Even now, you bleed faster than we do." Ward heard the transmission. She closed her eyes for a fraction of a second. Then she replied. "We've been bleeding for our entire history," she said calmly. "You just noticed." Across the battlefield, human ships pushed harder. They coordinated strikes on engines rather than hulls. On sensor arrays rather than weapons. On command ships rather than escorts. Dominion vessels tried to regroup, but every attempt was disrupted by another swarm, another ambush, another unexpected angle of attack. The Dominion's greatest strength, rigid, perfected doctrine, had become its weakness. They could not adapt fast enough. Kayla watched a Dravari cruiser lose power and drift, human boarding craft already moving in. "Boarding," he hissed. "They dare to board us." A junior officer looked horrified. "Warlord, they're taking prisoners." Kayla froze. No species boarded Dominion ships. No species captured Dominion warriors. That alone shattered a myth. On one crippled Dominion vessel, human marines breached through molten metal. They moved fast, coordinated, faces hidden behind armored helmets. They did not roar. They did not celebrate. They disabled systems, secured compartments, captured survivors. They treated the Dominion not as gods, but as enemies. On Earth, Ward watched feeds from multiple fronts. The cost was brutal, but the outcome was clear. The Dominion was losing. Not annihilated, but defeated in a way worse than destruction. Their aura of inevitability was gone. Kayla's command deck shook violently. "Warlord," an officer said quietly, "we cannot hold. We must withdraw." Kayla stared at the display, at the human ships, at the wreckage of his fleet, at the proof that the galaxy had changed. He felt something unfamiliar coil inside him. Not fear. Shame. He activated fleet-wide channels. "All remaining ships," he growled, "execute withdrawal." The order echoed across the broken formation. Engines flared. Warp fields charged. Human ships pursued, but did not chase blindly. Ward gave the order herself. "Let them go." Her officers looked at her in disbelief. "We can destroy them," one said. "Yes," Ward replied softly. "And then we become what they feared." She looked at the image of Earth rotating slowly on the screen. "We didn't fight to rule the galaxy. We fought to live in it." The last Dominion ship vanished into folded space. Silence returned. Debris drifted. Wreckage burned. Human ships held position, battered, scarred, but victorious. Across the galaxy, sensors had recorded everything. For the first time in 40,000 years, the stellar Dominion had retreated, and the myth of invincible rulers had bled. The silence after battle was louder than the fighting. Wreckage drifted through the Sol system, twisted metal, shattered hulls, cooling fragments of ships that had once been symbols of absolute power. Emergency beacons pulsed weakly. Fires burned without sound. The war was over, but its echo spread outward, faster than any fleet. Human ships held position. Damaged. Scarred. Alive. Director Elena Ward stood in the command center, exhaustion finally reaching her bones. Around her, people stared at screens in disbelief, as if afraid the victory might vanish if they blinked. "We did it," someone whispered. Ward did not answer immediately. Victory was not a moment. Victory was what came after. Across the galaxy, observers watched the recordings again and again. Merchant vessels. Neutral worlds. Subjugated species who had lived under Dominion rule for generations. They saw the same impossible truth. The stellar Dominion had retreated. Not repositioned. Not delayed. Retreated. That single fact cracked the foundation of galactic order. On worlds that had paid tribute for centuries, whispers began. On mining colonies worked to exhaustion, eyes lifted. On council chambers that had never dared speak aloud, questions formed. If the Dominion could bleed, what else was possible? The Dominion Grand Council reconvened in the Eternal Spire in emergency session. Their chamber felt smaller now. Older. Less certain. The Vathal representatives spoke first. "The Watchers have reappeared," one said quietly. "And vanished again." The Aurelian Collective pulsed uneasily. That alone would be destabilizing. "And humanity?" another council member asked. Silence followed. Finally, the Vathal answered. Humanity refused submission. They survived annihilation. They defeated a cleansing fleet. The words felt wrong to speak. The Dravari delegates were absent. Their warlord had returned in disgrace. Their fleets were rebuilding, but something essential had been lost. Fear. Not of humanity's weapons. Of humanity's thinking. They fight like they live, an Aurelian voice admitted. Adaptively. Collectively. Without reverence for tradition. The council did not vote. They could not. The galaxy they had ruled no longer obeyed old rules. In the Sol system, humanity began the long work of recovery. Ships limped home. Medical bays overflowed. Names were recorded. Losses were mourned. No parades filled the sky. No monuments were rushed into construction. Humanity did not celebrate like conquerors. They mourned like survivors. Ward stood on Earth months later, looking up at a sky that felt different now. Not safer. Just wider. A young officer stood beside her. "Messages are coming in," he said. "From other systems. Species we've never met." Ward nodded slowly. "Let me guess," she said. "They're not asking us to rule them." "No," the officer replied. "They're asking how we stood." Ward exhaled. That was the difference. Humanity did not offer empires. They offered stories. They told the truth. That fear never disappeared. That survival was never guaranteed. That courage was not the absence of fear, but the decision to move anyway. The Watchers never returned. But their judgment did not need repetition. The galaxy had seen enough. The stellar dominion still existed. But it no longer stood at the center of everything. And humanity. Humanity became something new. Not rulers. Not saviors. But proof. Proof that history was not finished. Proof that age did not equal wisdom. Proof that even ancient gods could bleed. And proof that when the galaxy finally pushed humanity to the edge, humanity pushed back. Not with arrogance. Not with hatred. But with the quiet, unstoppable refusal to kneel.